Greetings of peace and goodness to you, my friends. The story of the Transfiguration is the gospel for the second Sunday of Lent, as well as on August the 6th. Consequently, that provocative first reading about Abraham often gets the short shrift. So we're going to try to do something different today. We're going to preach about Abraham. Suffice it to say, though, in that gospel message, Jesus is presented as the fulfillment of the law and the prophets. And we echo the words of the apostle, "It is good for us to be here." The story of God asking Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac is a strange story. In truth, it is a shocking story. What we find most disturbing is the image of God that comes across in this story. And my friends, remember, it is a story. It is a story to teach a lesson. A story with a message. We must try to understand what the story is meant to convey in order for us to understand the message. It has something very important to teach us. And as a story, it is a very clever one. It sets out in the opposite direction to that in which it hopes to leave the listener. And it was first heard, not written, but heard before it was written down. The story starts out by seeming to say that God approves of human sacrifice, and even on occasion demands it. But its object is to show the exact opposite. It tries to show us that human sacrifice is in fact abhorrent to God. And it does this very well. What God appears to ask of Abraham is so cruel, so unjust, it makes us want to cry out, "Stop! This is wrong. This is terrible. How could God ask this of a person?" We're revolted by the idea of an elderly Abraham being asked by God to sacrifice his son Isaac. Our sense of revulsion is heightened by the special burden of hope that rested on Isaac's youthful shoulders. And Abraham, who was to be the fulfillment of the promise that he would have numerous descendants, more descendants than there are stars in the sky. How many stars are in the sky? If you go to a beach and you grab a handful of sand, they tell us, somebody must have counted them, I don't know how they know, but about 10,000 grains of sand. I certainly wasn't me that counted them. Scientists also tell us, astrophysicists tell us, that there are more stars in the sky than there are grains of sand on all the beaches of the entire planet Earth. That's the descendants of Abraham. The aim of the story is to invoke horror at the idea of God demanding sacrifice of human beings. The point that we don't really understand and know, perhaps, is that Abraham lived among the Canaanites, and among the Canaanites, human sacrifice was a factor. He must somehow have gotten the idea that God was demanding this deed also of him. But God showed Abraham otherwise. This story is meant to put an end to human sacrifice. Why did God test Abraham? So that the world would know that if anyone tells us, anyone, and we hear those voices often today, I'm committing murder in the name of God, they are liars. That is the unanimous opinion of not only Orthodox Jewish tradition, but also in the tradition of every civilized society on earth. Murder is murder, and it is never condoned or expected or accepted by God. Sadly, though, killing in the name of God has widely been practiced down through the ages, and is even a frequent horror in our own time. There are still people who think that they are honoring God or their faith by taking lives of others. From suicide bombers to terrorists of every sort, preying upon innocent individuals, kidnappings and hostage-taking, to pirates seeking ransom for captives, the killing of innocent men, women, and children, the destruction of homes and farmlands. That all tears at the heart of all of us. But civilization, it's not new. There have been many deeds in the history of the civilization that were murderous in the name of God. There have even been those with twisted reasoning, imagine, who have taken the lives of abortion doctors, and we've heard of them, in the name of pro-life. The incongruity of such behavior is beyond reasoning. God never wants anyone to mete out hurt for hurt, pain for pain, life for life, ever. The sadness is that the pages of history are stained with the red of blood spilled by people who see themselves as avengers of God. One thing of the first reading shows clearly is that Abraham is an individual of deep faith. He was prepared to sacrifice that which is dearest to him, his only son, and therein is our lesson. What do we hold back? What do we say? No. This is for me. You can't have this. This is my little portion. This is mine. What do we hold back from God? Notice the parallel in the New Testament. Abraham is willing to sacrifice what? His only begotten son, who carries the wood of his sacrifice on his back up the mountain. That parallel with Jesus carrying the only begotten Son of our Lord, Father, and God in heaven, carrying up the wood of his cross up the mountain to Calvary. Therein is the parallel and why these two readings serve as bookends in our liturgy of the Word today. Abraham's faith is rewarded in an extraordinary way. No wonder we call him our father in faith, as do the Jews and the Muslims as well. The story of Abraham condemns the idea of honoring God by taking a life, by hurting a life, by abusing a life. by oppressing a life. But Jesus introduced something that is a lot more challenging. The idea of honoring God by giving a life, giving the life of ourselves in the service of others for God. He set the example of himself. God didn't demand his life from him, from Jesus. He gave it up freely in service of his brothers and sisters, you and I. The more we are able to conquer ourselves, the more we are free. Let me just explain one thing about freedom. We have such a convoluted idea of what freedom means. I want to be free. I want to be able to do what I want. And we categorize freedom in those terms. To be able to do what I want is meaning I'm free. No, you're not. If you do what you want, you are a slave. You are not free. If you are free, you are able to do what you should in spite of what you want to do that is bad. To be able to overcome what I want to do what I should do for the glory of God, is a free person. The person who does only what they want is a slave and is not free. In giving of ourselves in service to others, we imitate most concretely the gift Christ gave to us by his suffering on the cross. Who did he do that for? Certainly not himself. He didn't need it. There's only one reason. There's only one reason why Christ did that. Oh, excuse me. There are thousands of reasons, and you all sit before him of why Christ did and offered his life for us. Every single one of us. And he would have done it if there was only one of us to do it for. Now, what do you say this kind of Lent is going to be for you? May the Lord grant you peace in ways that the world cannot.